I'm going to throw a wrench into our outline really quick and go out of order on our questions, because I think that bridges us really nicely into what was supposed to be our fourth question, but I'm going to move it up. And that's about managing a large team and onboarding. So going into maybe a bit more specific detail on this, how do you think about training and onboarding new employees once they've gotten into that selection phase? And does it look different in, your current roles on these high volume environments than it did when you were maybe in other roles or in situations where you were getting lower volume? Matthew, I'll let you go first this time.
Yeah, it's very different. And it's very different in my perspective because when you have such constant volume, you tend to have constant classes. So the machine that is recruiting it is a machine, and in many ways too, that you have to power it up. It doesn't turn on automatically and start spitting out great candidates. You need to get this thing going and humming. In a high volume environment, it never stops. Training never stops. Essentially, recruiting and training become an operation within themselves. With that, they become finely tuned. They really know through a lot of volume, a lot of experiences, what they're looking for and what they're not. So you tend to get a lot more speed in this space. You tend to get a lot more clarity on exactly what needs to be trained as defined, but you also tend to get a huge gap. Because operations exist within training and recruiting, there tends to be a silo between that and what actually is experienced on the production floor. Mm-hmm. That gap is the pain point that exists for the CSR that needs to be filled by nesting, new hire onboarding, whatever your organization calls it, but that small period of time where they just finished training and they're now in production. That right there is where you're going to lose your new hires. That's where your risk is financially, because if they do not transition from training to the floor with ease, they're going to leave. And you've just spent a ton of money to hire somebody that leaves immediately. Versus a smaller org where you have less volume, the training is a more intimate experience. There tends to be more opportunity on the content. You don't have as much infrastructure to build out your training content. On average, it takes about 40 hours to write 1 hour of training. That's a lot of labor. That's a lot of cost that you've put into it that you typically don't find in smaller orgs that come with smaller volumes. So the gaps exist within the training material, not within the process, the flow, or even the culture on the floor that you get within new hire trainings.